Are we rolling? Yes, we are. What's up, guys? It's your boy McKinley Crain here. Today, I'm going to be doing my spoiler-free movie review of the 2021 action movie Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Not to be confused with the 98 Nicolas Cage film of the same name. Because there was like a movie from 1998 that had Nicolas Cage in it that was called Snake Eyes. That's not the movie I'm reviewing today. I'm reviewing the 2021 Snake Eyes movie, not the 98 one. Anyway, so let's get into it. So I just recently saw this movie. I haven't seen any other G.I. Joe movies. I've only seen Snake Eyes. I've been aware of G.I. Joe for a while, and I've been aware of the movies, but I've just never gotten around to, like, watching any other G.I. Joe movies because I've heard really bad things about them. I've heard they've been really bad movies that have just been designed to, like, sell toys, even though they're PG-13 movies. Well, most of them, besides the cartoon one from the 80s. And they're not really aimed at, like, young children, if you know what I mean. Although, lots of young children see them and like them. I just never really got around to watching any of them. Until now. Which, of course, was when I decided to watch, Snake Eyes. So I saw an ad for this movie like a month ago, and I thought it looked cool. When I first heard that this movie was coming out, I was just like, oh, it's just gonna be another G.I. Joe movie. I mean, it could be okay, it could be good, but it's probably not gonna be great. And then I saw an ad for it, and my younger brother was just like, hey, you know that Snake Eyes movie? I'm really excited for that. I want to go see that in theaters. And I was just like, yeah, come to think of it, I do too. It looks really cool. So I just recently watched the movie alone by myself. He wasn't with me when I saw the movie. He had other things to do. So I recently just saw the movie, and it was actually really great. It was actually a very solid movie. It wasn't just made to sell toys. I don't think that this movie was... I'm sure like selling toys was like a part of why this movie was made, because it's Hasbro making this movie. Hasbro, like, you know, whenever they make a movie, you know, they always want to, like, you know, sell some merchandise, whether or not that's like their main intention for making the movie. Anyway, I do not believe that this movie was just made to sell toys, although I think that is part of it. That was part of a little bit of it, because, you know, Hasbro's released some actual, like, Snake Eyes toys and stuff like that, and merchandise for this movie. Anyway, this movie stars Henry Golding as Snake Eyes, who I think gives the best performance in this movie. I'm not the first person to like, you know, have ever said this. Like, you know, other critics who have seen this movie have said this, but Snake Eyes is an a-hole in this movie, kind of. He's kind of an a-hole. He makes a lot of bad, selfish decisions, and honestly, like, he's a likable a-hole. Like, I like how they made him, like, not like this, you know, like, pure of heart character or whatever, with no flaws. Like, I like how they kind of, like, fleshed out his character and made him, like, more, like, human. Like, he has, like, he has flaws. His character does have flaws, like intentional flaws, and I like that. I think that those flaws really flesh out his character and really make this movie story better. Um, so basically, like at the beginning of this movie, like Snake Eyes, like he's in the Yakuza, and then like he doesn't kill this guy, and he doesn't kill this guy like named Storm Shadow. Well, his real name's Tommy, but like his like ninja name is Storm Shadow, and he's played by Andrew Kojimi, by the way. Kojimi, by the way, who I think gives the second best performance of this movie. In this movie. And so basically, like, the Yakuza leader wants Snake Eyes to kill Storm Shadow, and then, Snake Eyes doesn't kill Storm Shadow, and then they escape, and then, like, Storm Shadow is just like, okay, dude, you saved my life, and I owe you, like, a lot. I think that I owe you a lot for that. And so he basically, like, introduces him to, like, his clan and his home, and he's just like, oh, dude, you should totally join this clan. And so Snake Eyes is just like, okay, I will. I'll try. And those are some of the best parts of this movie, in my opinion. This movie had a lot of clever parts, and it also had a lot of clever dialogue, especially like between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. They had the best character chemistry in this movie, in my opinion, although all the character chemistry in this movie is great. And, like, a lot of the training scenes in this movie, like, where, like, Storm Shadow and the rest of the clan are, like, training Snake Eyes, are some of the best scenes in this movie, in my opinion. I know I think I already said that, like, 45 seconds ago, but I'm just going to say it again because I feel like it. I was very impressed by this, not only by those scenes, but by this whole movie. Especially by those scenes. The training scenes in this movie, like, were very impressive. Like, their methods of training him were very impressive. Especially, like, the whole bowl of water thing. I'm not gonna get too much into that, but, like, if you've seen this movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen this movie and you're going to see this movie, when you see this movie, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. That was very impressive and very clever. That was a very clever scene. And this movie has very clever writing, in my opinion. And it has a lot of charm. Like, this movie has a lot of charm. It's not just, like, a pointless, like, an action movie with pointless action. It's not like a really bad Michael Bay film where it's just all explosions and no point, and it's not even fun to watch. Not all Michael Bay action movies are bad. A lot of them are great. Some are okay. A lot are okay, but there are some. We all know that there are some bad Michael Bay movies where all that's in the movie is just explosion after explosion, and, like, not even the good kind of, like, explosion or the exciting kind. It's just the kind where you're just like, not another explosion, and there's no point, and it's just mediocre or bad or something. This isn't that kind of action movie, although a lot of people like to believe it is. Most of the other critics didn't like this movie. Like, this movie has, like, a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, a 42% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has a 74% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And I gotta say, I would definitely agree more with the majority of, like, the audience who, like, reviewed this movie than the other critics. Because I really enjoyed this movie. This was one of the best action movies of the year. It's probably in my top 10 action movies, best action movies of this year. Um, it's probably not in my top 10 best movies of the year. It's probably like in my top 30 or maybe top 20. But it is in my top 10 best action. It is probably in my top 10 best action movies of this year. It was a very entertaining movie with a lot of great special effects. I was very impressed by the special effects in this movie, especially like during the action scenes, like especially like the special effects for like, the costumes in this movie, like especially Snake Eyes like costume and ninja costume, and Storm Shadow's ninja costume, and like, the CG on like all the vehicles and weapons. That was all great, and that was all very impressive. And speaking of like costumes and stuff like that, I loved like the whole ninja aesthetic of this movie. Like I loved like the whole like ninja kind of like Japanese cultural ninja setting that was in a lot of this movie. Like I loved that. I ate that up because I've always loved like ninjas and samurais and stuff like that, and I just loved that setting and that aesthetic. It made this movie even better and even more enjoyable, and I loved the action in this movie. I know it can be a little hard to follow, but that's because it's very fast, and I feel like it's supposed to be intentionally a little hard to follow, just to, like grab the audience's attention, like the movie watchers' attention, like more, like to just pull the audience in more and try to make them figure out like what exactly is happening and get them more invested, and that really works. Like a lot of people had problems with the action. They said that the action was like very shaky cam, and they didn't like it. But I liked the action, and I was actually very impressed with the action, especially with the stunts, and just, the fighting. The fighting blew me away. The stunts blew me away. I was very impressed. I was just like, whoever's doing these stunts is like doing a really good job, because like I'm impressed. And I was having a lot of fun watching this movie. This movie was very gripping, and it was just a lot of fun to watch. And the characters were all very likable in my opinion, and very three-dimensional. And all the twists and turns in this movie, and yes, there are some, were very great, and a lot of them were very unpredictable in a good way, and the ones that were predictable in a necessary and a good way, of course. And that reminds me, this movie did have some cliches, like some like action movie cliches, but like, the cliches that were in here were like necessary action movie cliches, and they weren't like annoying cliches. And they were actually like pretty good cliches that made this movie better. Most of this movie is like original, but there were some like, action movie cliches in there. And this movie could be a little bit predictable, like at certain times. Like at one time it was predictable. Like this movie's mostly unpredictable, but one time it was kind of really predictable. Towards the end, there was one moment where I was just like, I know exactly what he's gonna do. But that wasn't bad at all. That was just, predictable in a good way that makes the story even better. And, if you've seen like, a lot of movies, you're gonna get to a point, like in your life, if you've seen a lot of movies in your life, you're gonna get to a point where you can't watch any movie and not know, like, and not like have a moment where you're just like, oh, I think I know what's gonna happen, and be right. Anyway, this was a very solid movie in my opinion. It was a very solid entry into the G.I. Joe franchise. It makes me want to see the other G.I. Joe movies more than I did before, and I really love this movie. It had a lot of strong acting in it. The ending was great and felt very satisfying, and this felt like a very just awesome origin story, and it was a very awesome origin story, and it's a very awesome movie. And it's actually surprisingly deep at a lot of times. I mean, it's not like, a psychological movie that really toys with your brain, but it can be a little bit deep. It can be really deep at certain times in this movie, and those times those times are awesome, and the deepness in this movie, the depth in this movie, like of those deep scenes, really make this movie better, and really make this movie even more gripping. And there are quite a few powerful scenes in here, and well, especially when Snake Eyes is like trying to figure out his past and just accept his past, and kind of figure out what to do, figure out how to accept his past and how to deal with his past. That's when most of the really powerful scenes are, in this movie. Anyway, I love this movie, and I'm gonna give it an 87% out of a 100%, which is the equivalent of an A-. Like, subscribe, join the notification squad. I will return.